there is research to show that Republicans want to turn the chapter and move to somebody younger than certainly Donald Trump and certainly Joe Biden.
Donald Trump has said that he must be elected US president again in 2024 if a third world war is to be avoided. The former president also criticised former Republican leaders during a speech at the Conservative Political Action Conference, the annual gathering for grassroots conservatives in the US.
When we started this journey, a journey like there has never been before, there's never been anything like this. We had a Republican Party that was ruled by freaks, neocons, globalists, open border zealots, and fools. But we are never going back to the party of Paul Ryan, Karl Rove, and Jeb Bush.
Well, not holding back there. Donald Trump's big rival to become the Republican nominee is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, but he didn't attend the conference. Conan Nolan, a political correspondent for NBC, told me that he understands that choice.
It was a wise decision. CPAC no longer represents the Republican conservative base. It is all MAGA. It is all Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Trump at his speech said, this seems like a rally, and it did. It seemed like a rally. Nikki Haley gave a speech. She was the only other potential candidate for president or declared candidate to speak at that event. She was heckled when she left. So it was a MAGA rally. In the meantime, you had Ron DeSantis visiting the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum, which is a touchstone for Republican Party politics, and giving a sold-out speech to 1,300 people below the wingspan of Air Force One, which is at that library. An hour-long speech where he talked about policy. He talked about culture wars. He talked about the economy and how his state did better when it came to COVID because he avoided the lockdowns. He gave them sort of the red meat, but he did it in a way that departs from the name calling and the showbiz that Donald Trump is known for. So again, he was trying to connect with mainline Republicans, along with some of those who supported Donald Trump, but have grown tired of him and the bombastic nature of his campaigning.
I mean, DeSantis didn't mention Trump at all in his speech. Do you know, I mean, are the two men, are they friendly? Do they talk? What's the relationship between the two of them?
I will correct you. He did mention him once, and it was a very artful mention. Ron DeSantis in his speech before the 1,300 Republicans at the Ronald Reagan Library made a reference to a comment Ronald Reagan made about age when he quoted Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers, saying, that what isn't important is your age, but the quality of your achievements. And he said that because he then said that besides Ronald Reagan was the oldest U.S. president to take the oath of office at 69, and he was then eclipsed by the next oldest president, which was Donald Trump, who took the oath when he was 70, and then mentioned Joe Biden, who took it at 78. It was a subtle way of bringing up the topic that he wants to use against Donald Trump, which is something Mr. Trump can't fight against, which is age. And the fact that there is research to show that Republicans want to turn the chapter and move to somebody younger than certainly Donald Trump and certainly Joe Biden.
I mean, is that why some of the comments made by Donald Trump in his speech to that CPAC event were pretty punchy? I mean, we're used to that kind of language from him. But I mean, saying, you know, that he and his supporters would never go back to a Republican Party run by freaks and fools who'd engaged in endless foreign wars. I mean, it just seems that he's gone to another level.
It does. I mean, he had been hurt by criticism that this latest campaign for president was lacking the dynamism that he had in 2016 or even 2020, that it was lackluster. He tried to answer that with this old-fashioned Donald Trump red meat rally where he went against everybody and once again said he was the only one who could possibly restore the economy. He was the only one. He even said he would solve the war in Ukraine against Russia before he would even take the oath of office. It would be that quick. And so it was all Donald Trump once again, and it's got to be an us versus them mentality. there are plenty within the Republican Party. He understands that there are plenty who say, listen, we have to move on from him. And he has declared war on them, to the point there's some who've suggested that even if he doesn't win the nomination, would he support the Republican nominee? He has not said he would. And there's always the possibility he would run as a third party candidate. So it's helped him in the past to dismiss other Republicans as rhinos, Republicans in name only. And he's doing it again.
I mean, his followers, I was reading some of the coverage, even some of his followers who were at CPAC were saying, not quite decided. Some of them think DeSantis might be the best way forward. Some of them feel uneasy about some of the remarks that he's making. How big is his support within the party? And does it matter that it is diminished from where it used to stand?
His support is substantial. It's not where it once was. And this is not 2016. He's not. People know the game now, and he's not going to surprise them with the kind of tactics that we saw even at this rally at CPAC. So there is a concern. Something he's doing that he didn't do in 2016 was that he's actually talking to state Republican Party officials. He's actually trying to organize in some of these states because he knows that he doesn't have a majority of Republican support. But that doesn't mean he can't get enough to win in some of those primary states. So he's soft. And once again, in 2016 and 2020, of course, he didn't have a guy like Ron DeSantis, who is very much like Donald Trump when it comes to policy engagements and statements and efforts at fighting culture wars. But he doesn't have the baggage that Donald Trump seems to have. And a lot of even Trump supporters don't like the fact that Donald Trump is saying negative things about Ron DeSantis. They like both men.
That was Conan Nolan, the political correspondent for NBC. It's going to be a fascinating next year, isn't it, Kate? Really?
Yeah, it really will be. Although I thought what was really interesting about what he was saying is that actually Trump could split the vote depending on how many other people run to be the candidate, and that could be problematic for DeSantis.
I can totally see that. But when you hear Trump, I mean, you forget. I mean, because there was a period when he was in our lives all of the time, particularly when he was on social media, and then he comes back and he does. There is something that cuts through. I mean, it's mad. It's often mad, but you always slightly, your ears prick up slightly when he speaks, doesn't it? Because you don't quite know what's going to happen. Whether that's whether that makes him more or less electable, I don't know. When you're sort of relying on his.
Well, it's
madness.
how people feel about Boris Johnson, isn't it? About listening to him speak. It's that there's something in it that makes you want to listen, and that's probably most of the battle when it comes to politics.
Yeah, that's interesting.